This is the interactive reading of 1729.com of the network state and preamble. What's up, guys? Welcome to the interactive reading session of the network state. This is the preamble, very beginning, talking about startup societies, future of humanity, and where these digital nations will take us. Super excited about this book, been waiting a long time for it, and it is spawning me to create this YouTube channel. I haven't dove into a book in a while. I haven't been as excited about a book in a while. And I haven't had a book that is more relative to my life, which is building a startup society and great digital nation, than ever before. So any comments on ways to improve this methodology would be great. I have a whiteboard that I have had put on the wall in order for me to illustrate and draw during the reading, which I think can be a cool effect and a more interactive model and way to break down these concepts with somebody in this video manner, relative to just reading it like it's an audiobook or you reading it alone. I feel this could be a cool, different way to consume information with another body, see it through another perspective and lens, and even have some illustrations drawn out to represent some of the words that are within the book. Although I see there's some core illustrations also displayed, which is cool. And to get right into it, if you want just the quick piece, they've outlined the one sentence, but we're going to start with the entire book. In one sentence, it starts with that. A network state is a highly aligned community with a capacity for collective action that crowdfunds territory around the world and eventually gains diplomatic recognition from pre-existing states. Another thing, sorry for more of the intro, but given it's the first time I'm doing this, I think it's important. I think a teleprompter might be cool so I can look directly at the camera. Happy for any feedback. If it's good that I'm reading down from the podium, or if it's better if I kind of look directly into the lens. When we think of a nation state, we immediately think of the lands. But when we think of a network state, we should instantly think of the minds. That is, if the nation state system starts with the map of the globe and assigns each patch of land to a single state, the network state starts with the 7 billion humans of the world and attracts each mind to one or more networks. Here's a more complex definition that extends the concept and preemptively covers many edge cases. A network state is a social network with a moral innovation, a sense of national consciousness, a recognized founder, a capacity for collective action, an in-person level of civility, an integrated cryptocurrency, a consensual government limited by a social smart contract, an archipelago of crowd-funded physical territories, a virtual capital, and an on-chain census that proves a large enough population, income, and real estate footprint to attain a measure of diplomatic recognition. It's lengthy because there are many internet phenomena that share some but not all of the properties of a network state. For example, neither Bitcoin nor Facebook nor a DAO is a network state because each lacks certain quality, like diplomatic recognition, which are core to anything we'd think of as the next version of the nation state. The network state in this image, which is a view and graph showing all the different populations and the amount of people and how they are connected. Sorry if that's not clear. The dashboard shows what that looks like. It shows these network states with 1.7 million people, more than $157 billion in annual income, and a 136 million square meter footprint. The first thing we notice is that a network state isn't physically centralized like a nation state, nor limited in scale like a city-state. It's geographically decentralized and connected by the internet. The second thing we see is that you could feasibly start this kind of country from your computer. That is, just as Facebook grew from one person's laptop, a million-person network state that owns a global archipelago of physical territory could start as a one-person startup society, as shown in this GIF. And the GIF illustrates basically just these societies forming from small populations to bigger populations. As I see it, this future is on the souls of man rather than the territory that they're on. And so we are going to be able to choose the greater organizations that in which we align to. The second thing we see is that you could feasibly start this. The third thing we see is how central the real-time census is to the network state. The dashboard combines concepts from coins, companies, and countries to focus on a society, on growth in people, annual income, and real estate footprint. Continued growth is a continuous plebiscite, a vote of confidence by the people inside who remain and those outside who apply. Roughly speaking, a successful network state is one that attracts aligned immigrants, and an unsuccessful network state is one that loses them. Does this have a positive feedback loop, a positive KPI? Does it continue to raise on the scale of population or not? It's similar to people's identity with religion. Is your religion successful by getting people to attain and align with that thing? And it's something that I've been thinking about since I was young. We right now, as a precursor for why this is so important, are in the midst of recreating a government, that which is a meme, starting with one piece of it, the Decentralized Intelligence Agency, something that I am a part of that is greater than me, and as well as the deeper organization that is building Purple Rock, the FBUS instead of the FBI. These are some beautiful things that represent what we already had, with a collective goal to spread good vibes to the entire world, to create the kingdom of God. The kingdom is representation of utopia and an amazing future. So, in terms of sparking this amazing network state, the initial methodology we're using is a vampire attack onto Twitter. This is called Decentralon conducting Operation Freebird, where users of Twitter are able to form into a DAO with the goal of either buying Twitter. If we are able to accumulate half of Twitter's user base, we see this as being successful. And if we're only able to attain a certain percent before the deal goes through, to make it private, we still will be conducting vampire attacks in order to pull people on the Freebird platform that we just kickstarted and developed. Now, why is this important? It starts as a way to growth hack our digital network state and to have a World Economic Forum. And that's just a funny display of the fact that right now, the World Economic Forum is not a forum. In fact, it's a very, very private, individual-based group. So the current powers that are running the world are for themselves. The future powers will be for the greater good. The organism, God, all of us, however you want to describe it, it is for the greater good, greater of all. The men who want to become men, not the man who wants to become God. So that doesn't mean each network state must grow to infinity, or that all states need except of the same kind of person, but that the community of network states as a whole is focused on building admirable societies that people want to join. Different states will focus on different metrics. Imagine a network state premised on boosting its citizens' life expectancy, or one aimed at probably right-shifting the income distribution. You get what you measure. So when it comes to understanding this, of course there's going to be states within a nation. And I think that's one thing I hope this gets into, which is the idea of different network states being a part of a bigger global nation. Right now we have states inside of one bigger country, each with its own different culture and sets of laws that make sense for those groups. And I think within these states, we'll have smaller tribes. And this is just a way for people to organize in shared smaller communities, which I think is powerful, which I think increases the beauty on the personal self of the individual and empowers them and allows people to find that tribe that they really jibe with. Now, all of these different states that are combined under one nation still share something. And what that originally was, but has kind of passed down, is the Bible. That's how I know it from my American perspective. And that Bible was the grounds of many different nations. It was the highest point, the religion, the highest thing man can really combine with, which is what their purpose and meaning is overall. Everything else is just a piece of a function that they play. And so what our network nation is believing as our one kind of belief system, it's called Holy Bible, and that basically is a similar message to all the different religions, treating others how you want to be treated, and of faith. But rather than faith being based off of some explanation and stories, etc., it's unconditional faith in the modern sense of universal pragmatism. And what I mean by that is undeniable faith. Simply this idea of faith in faith itself. And so what do I mean by that? Well, when you believe in God and you believe in a greater plan for yourself, it's really amazing. It allows you to find purpose and meaning in all of your past history. So if you can really believe that everything happened for a reason, it allows you to start to look at that in a positive light. And that's a beautiful thing. You build yourself a greater purpose. That is the really awesome effect and impact of the belief in some religious institution or story. Those stories that we've had have started to diminish. They're convoluted. They're full of fluff. Most Christians haven't read them the whole Bible. And when looking at that, how can we condense down the unconditional faith that it gives you in a universal manner that is just undeniable? And so what we get there is, how do we believe everything happens for a reason, which I will shorten with FR, simply because if you believe it, it makes your life better. It's a good vibe. So everything happens for a reason, and if it doesn't, it's better to think that it does. And what this does is it allows you to stay in that frame of thought, and it allows you to defeat the doubt. You're explaining away the doubt. Normally, with a greater God and religion and community, in this case, we simply kill the doubt by saying to kill the doubt is to give yourself more meaning, more purpose, to accept your past. And why would you not? So please, what this does is allows you to vibe. It's a good vibe. And it's funny because what the Bible really displays for the people who follow it at its core is to spread the gospel. It's to spread the good news about the coming kingdom of God. And what is good news? Well, good news is good information. News is information. What are vibes? Vibes is information for the human in the form of qualia, experience. So good news is synonymous to good vibes, after all. So in the Bible, spreading good news is what you're supposed to do, which is really just spreading good vibes. So that's what the Holy Bible is a condensed version and pragmatic, universal methodology of finding unconditional faith, which leads to unconditional love, which is something that has really changed my life and is a glue behind the organization, that which is evolving. Back to the book. The network state in 1,000 words. Technology has allowed us to start new companies, new communities, and new currencies. But can we use it to create new cities or even new countries? A key concept is to go cloud first, land last, but not land never. By starting with an online community and then materializing it into the physical world, we get there in 7 steps. 1. Found a startup society. This is simply an online community with aspirations of something greater. Anyone can found one, just like anyone can found a company or cryptocurrency. And the founder's legitimacy comes from whether people opt to follow them. Number 2. Organize it into a group capable of collective action. Given a sufficiently dedicated online community, the next step is to organize it into a network union. Unlike a social network, a network union has a purpose. It coordinates its members for their mutual benefit. And unlike a traditional union, a network union is not set up solely in opposition to a particular corporation, so it can take a variety of different collective actions. Unionization is a key step because it turns an otherwise ineffective online community into a group of people working together for a common cause. Number 3, build trust offline and a crypto economy online. Begin holding in-person meetups in the physical world of increasing scale and duration, while simultaneously building an internal economy using cryptocurrency. That is a stage that we are in of the planning of the release of vibes. When you spread the vibes, you pump your bag. And I think that is a amazing look at the psychology of human, which is the want to spread the ideology and the ego's want to get a reward from it. It's just being early to a next big thing. If you're early to any movement, there's great benefits. When it comes to building a currency, what's cool about that is based on this faith in the future of the currency, you find that it expands greatly. And what you have with Dogecoin and Bitcoin is really religious sentiments and mimetic value. So that's the ability for it to spread and the ability for someone to really believe in it. Well, we have a deeper write-up online of why the Holy Bible and spreading good vibes is truly the one thing that we need as a humanity, which kind of revolves around this idea that we are only limited by how high we dream. And so I'm reading this book for the first time, but I knew that it was going to go over all these different things. I've followed Balaji for a bit and been speaking to different members. Praxis is obviously a group that's very in tune with a lot of these ideas and concepts. Crowdfund physical nodes. So once sufficient trust has been built and funds have been accumulated, start crowdfunding apartments, houses, and even towns to bring digital citizens into the physical world within real co-living communities. I am inside of one right now, which is pretty awesome. And I am about to travel to Philippines in order to scout starting one up there. The international workforce is, of course, way better for resource scale, and being the mitochondria area of the cell, that which is an organism that wants to grow. Digitally connect physical communities. Link these physical nodes together into a network archipelago, a set of digitally connected physical territories distributed around the world. Nodes of the network archipelago range from one-person apartments to in-person communities of arbitrary size. Physical access is granted by holding a Web3 crypto passport, and mixed reality is used to seamlessly link the online and offline worlds. This is a bit farther down the line in terms of using mixed reality. I think when AR comes out, that's something. Physical access of holding a Web3 crypto passport. If you get to a certain size, you can definitely just have it be phone app scan, which confirms your currency or NFT in order for access to these clubs, which could eventually definitely acquire real estate in airports and offer similar packages to what Amex does. And I think groups would want to do this as well in terms of what Amex does, which is have its own credit system and reward system. You want basically your network state to run on the currency that which is the currency of your network state. That is economic power. And it's something that's been talked about of a new global reserve, that which is digital. They've released one, I think. Forget what it's called. Hasn't been marketed a lot, but almost $1 trillion has gone into it. Obviously, talks from Davos and different organizations are pushing forward this globalization path, but transparently. And so I believe the current globalization path is corrupt and seek to serve a greater path. Conduct an on-chain census. As the society scales, run a cryptographically auditable census to demonstrate the growing size of your population, income, and real estate footprint. This is how a startup society provides proves traction in the face of skepticism. Funnily enough, as an immediate thing for Decentraland, what we are doing is building dashboards to show how many members claimed. So what that looks like is, how many are claiming. Since we have the first wallet app with voting integrated, this is going to prove a means of sending a push notification for joining the vote, which is something we just want to increase our potential voters, and then eventually adding Cybele resistance, which will be identity verification systems, just to prove it's not just a botnet. And I believe the future internet and social networks will very much so have to be Cybele resistant. We're only just beginning to see the capabilities of botnets. I'm sure we don't know many accounts that are currently running that are actually just computers. So super interesting stuff. And I think that is where some of these concepts are coming from, is an understanding of those trends. Gain diplomatic recognition. This is one I haven't even thought deep about. A startup society with sufficient scale should eventually be able to negotiate for diplomatic recognition from at least one pre-existing government, and from there gradually increased sovereignty, slowly becoming a true network state. Actually, of course, the Praxis guys are talking about this. The key idea is to populate the land from the cloud, and to do so all over the earth. Unlike an ideologically disaligned and geographically centralized legacy state, which packs millions of disputants in one place, a network state is ideologically aligned but geographically decentralized. The people are spread around the world in clusters of varying size, but their hearts are in one place. That is very perfect, because I think the core of everything I've thought about is around that one core message and thing people can believe in. And that is the Holy Bible, the faith, the spirit of religion. What has it really affected people as, and how can we get that in a universal way that anyone can agree with? It's something I dedicated my entire youth to figuring out, because I felt it in different ways, but over time found a way to, one, condense it, and two, make it mimetic. Holy Bibles, honestly, it's just a fucking meme. It's about the vibes, Boom. And what I'll say about that is that having the hearts in one place is, I think, just the key. So I think the biggest part of what's happening here is that when it comes to these network states, I think you're going to see one global super network. And so you have to think about what is the most universal place for everyone's hearts to go. Also, how do you build that so that it's accepting of everybody? And I think what is in the works, of course, the plan is to reveal everything we're doing, because that is the difference between the current World Economic Forum and the current superpowers, is a lack of wanting to explain empathetically the plan that is being operated on and aligning all people behind it. That is what you need, is the alignment of man, of humans. And to do that, you have to give up power and focus on creating the thing that's best for the organism. And the thought for that is a universal basic vibes, which would be around as long as you do not do nicotine, alcohol, drugs, that which are not spiritually based, and you are a positive growing person, then basically you get a stipend. You're able to live in one of these communities, you have tasks and work, but you have a universal basic vibe, which is really just covering the universal basic needs. These are all ideas that as a growing diplomatic organization are being discussed and talked about, and it's just gonna be fun. At the end of the day, I think that's a really cool option to offer people, because what any person needs is sustainability, basically to be able to create a life that someone can live. A lot of people find that in working a job, but what that restricts someone from is scale. And scale is the really exciting thing, scaling impact. And so sustainability in a job often looks like, you might get some raise over time, but what you don't have is this scale path, this idea of maybe at some point I go like this, depending on what I'm working on. You get to work on increasing the basic means of production rather than production to sustain itself. So from a perspective side of the digital network state, with the startup society, you are basically giving the perfect capability for a founder to work and focus on a big idea and to formulate it and to go down the idea mazes necessary to make it happen. As the population and economy of a startup society grow comparable to that of a legacy state with millions of citizens and billions in income, it should eventually be able to retain recognition from existing sovereigns and ultimately the United Nations, just as Bitcoin has now become a bona fide national currency. United Nations, baby. The network state in one essay. Proposition is not a nation, though it can become one. Here we describe a peaceful, reproducible process for turning an online community premised on a proposition into a physical state with a virtual capital. A network state, the sequel to the nation state. We want to be able to peacefully start a new state for the same reason we want a bare plot of earth, a blank sheet of paper, an empty text buffer, fresh startup, or a clean slate, because we want to build something new without historical constraint. The financial demand for a clean slate is clear. People buy millions of acres of vacant land and incorporate hundreds of thousands of new companies each year, spending billions just to get that fresh start. And now that it is possible to start not just new companies, but new communities and even new currencies, we see people flocking to those and create those as well. The societal value of a clean slate is also clear. In the technology sector alone, the ability to form new companies has created trillions of dollars in wealth over the past few decades. Indeed, if we imagine a world where you couldn't just obtain a blank sheet of paper, but had to erase an older one, where you couldn't just acquire bare land, but had to knock down a standing building, where you couldn't just create a new company, but had to reform an existing firm, we imagine endless conflict over scarce resources. People, perhaps, we don't have to think too hard to imagine this world. It resembles our own. In the distant past, people could only write on clay tablets. In the recent past, they were executed for contemplating entrepreneurship. And in the immediate present, they are arguing over replacing an ancient gas station. In these times and places, making a fresh start has been technologically infeasible, politically impossible, or judiciously punishable. And that's where we are today, with countries, cities, nations, governments, institutions, and much of the physical world. Because the brand new is unthinkable, we fight over the old. But perhaps we can change that. How to start a new country. There are at least 6 ways to start a new country. 3 are conventional and 3 are unconventional. We will introduce them only to deprioritize them, all in favor of a 7th. Alright, I'm actually going to end this video here and start the How to Start a New Country on the next one. Go see it at part 2. And don't forget to vibe. Cheers.